Feskerma, nice to see you today. In this lesson, we're going to look at how to say his and hers in Gaelic. Being very comfortable with how this works will not only sharpen the accuracy of your Gaelic, but it'll make it a bit more impressive. Okay, let's jump in. Here we go. So, ladies first. Let's have the ladies go first. So to say hers, or her, really, we're looking at her, we're going to use the letter A. A. This means her. There are other meanings to the letter A. It depends on the context. But in this context, we're going to use it meaning her. So, a, her. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this a in front of these words. Okay. So, beha, actually, we need to sort out what they mean first. Beha is life. Opad is work. Ahar, father. Maher, mother. Cat, just ka, it's cat. Ku, dog. Shine, te, house. And because we always need a picture. Oh, that's a wobbly looking house. That roof will not hold up to a Maine winter, let me tell you that. We're just coming into spring now. Everything's completely different. It's lovely to see things coming to life. Anyway, so kacht is just cat. We don't need to translate that. Kacht is cat. All right, so how to say her life? We're going to put a in front of this. A beha. A beha. Her life. A beha. Her work. A hoper. A hoper. Now, why is there the H here? Well, it's because this word starts with a vowel. Her work. This little H comes in because vowels don't play well together in Gaelic. They don't get along, they fight. So we need the H as like maybe a dividing wall or like a peacekeeper or however you want to think of it. The H keeps the vowels from fighting. And this H only comes up in this context in her. So you can use this H to think of H, her. Gleva, gleva. So, a beha, her life, right? A hoper, her work. Ahar, her father? Well, it'll just be like this. A hahar, her father. Her mum? A maher, a maher. So notice this A is short, a. This one's long, a. A maher, a maher. Gleva. Her cat, her dog, her house. Now, perhaps you already have seen this. There are two ways of saying someone has something in Gaelic. You can use these. It's usually just a letter or two. And this way of using a, this a, is really for things that are very personal. Like your thoughts, your opinions, your life, your work, you know, your family members. Those would all use this a, because they're quite personal. Let's see. These are quite personal. These are personal things. However, cats, dogs, and houses, in the Gaelic mindset at least, are not that personal, or they're less personal, regardless of your relationship to your cat or your dog or your house. So, following this traditional Gaelic mindset here, it's important to keep up the mindset, we're going to say her cat. Well, really we're going to say an cacht eichke. An cacht eichke. So this is her cat. An cacht eichke. Literally we're saying the cat at her, or the cat she has. When you have something, it's at you in Gaelic. At you. So if you're to say, talking about my house, I would say the house at me, or the house I have, or the yurt studio that I have, the yurt I have, that kind of thing. Because these things are less personal, we're going to use this form here. An cacht éiche. And notice there's a H sound in there. Let's mark that H sound. An cacht, there's an H sound here, but also here. An cacht éiche. An cacht éiche. Nice. Little things like that will make your Gaelic really stand out. It'll make it sound, you know, much closer to that of a native speaker. Gleva. Okay, so let's keep going here. Her dog, an cú éiche. It's the same thing. An cú éiche. Or in some dialects, an gú éiche. But let's keep it straightforward. Cú here. An cú éiche. The dog she has. Or the dog at her. This can be a little funky at first. It can take some time to get used to, but after a while it just becomes natural. I suggest just learning these as you go, and really, you know, pay attention to what native speakers say, what teachers say. You'll start seeing these more, and once you start seeing these more, you can really acquire it pretty quickly, I think. You can do it. You can do it. But at first, it might sound weird. You know, this concept might sound weird, and you might get these confused. That's normal. That's okay. So her house, an tae éiche, or an dae éiche in some dialects. Again, the house she has. Yeah. So these are the two ways that you're going to see her in Gaelic, using just the letter A for things that are personal, like family members, or work, or opinions, or life, thoughts, you know, death. All of these are pretty personal. So we use a. Okay? Gleva. Let's take a look at his now. So, just to keep things easy for you, his is also the letter A. Oh, love it. I love it. Again, you'll learn these. It'll be okay. But at first, they'll probably get them confused, and that's not the end of the world. You'll be understood. You'll always be understood. Okay. Leva. So, his life. Do you have Bon Jovi stuck in your head too? But we're going to lenite. Veha. Aveha. We lenite because it's his. So, that's really important to notice here. You add your H. You add that H, you lenite if possible. Not everything can lenite. Not every letter can. But many can. Most can. All right, so aveha. And this is exactly the way to see if you're talking about his or her. Because if you just go on the letter A, the word A, there's no clue. But the next word will give you the clue. If the next word is lenited, chances are it's his. Aveha. Aveha. But if it's abeha, it's her. Her life. His life. So, my tip for you, check to see what the following word does. If it adds an H, chances are it means his. If it doesn't, chances are it means her. Although, as you'll see in a moment, you know, there are other clues too. So, check the following word. All right, so his work. Hoper is her work. But his work? Well, technically, oper. But remember, vowels, they fight. They don't get along. So what do? We actually take out the A entirely. And we put a little apostrophe. An apostrophe. Those apostrophes tell you that there's a letter missing. And what's missing is the A. So this can be a little confusing. So the rest of what's being talked about will give you clues if you're talking about a man or a woman. You know, if you're not talking about a man, you know, this might be something else. Usually not, though. So your clue here is the apostrophe. it means that there was this A here. But notice for her, we don't do any apostrophe work, we just add the H. So this H is a really great indicator that you're dealing with her. The apostrophe is a really good indicator that you're dealing with his, or the lenition as well. Okay, let's keep going. What about his father? It's going to follow this same pattern that we just did. Ahar. Ahar. That can take some getting used to. Ahar. Just ahar. Not ahar. At one point it was probably written that way, but not anymore. His mother. Well, M can take an H, right? So it's avahar. 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 So there's your clue. Avahar, his mum. That's not going to be anything else. If you see avahar, that's his mum. His mum. All right. So those are the personal things, right? These are personal. These are personal. And what about cat, his cat? We're going to do the same thing as we did over here. The cat he has, or the cat at him. An kacht ikke. An koe ikke. An tei ikke. Or an tei ikke. Yeah, just like that. So ikke means his, or the thing he has. Yeah. Gleva, just like that. Okay, Maha. Okay. Skonjo. So, now there are a couple times when it might be difficult to tell, you know, if it's his or her. There are some letters that don't lenite or take an H. So let's see, what would be an example of that? Ah, neighbor. So, the word for neighbor, or one word for neighbor, is napi. 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 Now, as I learned it, the word neighbor would count as something personal. Just go with it. So, saying her neighbor would be napi. His neighbor would also be napi. So it can be difficult with a few words to tell if it's his or her. However, the rest of what's being said, right, the context around this little chunk of Gaelic should give you clues. You know, if someone's talking about his brother or her brother or, you know, my brother, that kind of thing, the word brother will tell you it's his. So it's his neighbor, right? His neighbor. Anapi. Anapi. So occasionally you'll get a word in which there'll just be a in front of it and it's hard to tell if it's his or her. So refer around it. You know, look for clues around that phrase. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty darn clear here. Her, a meaning her, adds the H, right? Whereas a meaning his, the a can disappear sometimes entirely. Or it lenites. Okay. Gleva. Nicely done.